Welcome to the Vault XL. Thank you for joining me. This is a two-part live pertaining to Sonia Massie, the manner of death. Grayson has been denied a pretrial release, and Fabiola Thomas, her killer, has received a life sentence in prison. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to start off with the story out of Georgia pertaining to Fabiola Thomas and Anthony Wilson. WSB TV is the source.
Sentenced a man to life in prison after killing a woman he met on a dating app.
Channel 2 investigative reporter Ashley Lincoln was the only reporter in the courtroom when the judge handed down that sentence and spoke exclusively with the district attorney about it.
It's one of the hardest crimes to make sure that we combat.
And Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis says her office is proactively litigating domestic violence cases.
This is an issue that is really close to home for me.
Through the Brenda Byam Domestic Violence Unit, named after Willis's late aunt.
Ultimately stabbed her to death in the back.
Tuesday, part of the unit spoke to me after the defendant was sentenced in the 2019 murder of Fabiola Thomas.
This is a really sad case.
Her life mattered. She lived with purpose.
A Fulton County judge sentenced Antonia Wilson to serve life without the possibility of parole for malice murder.
She unfriended Antonia Wilson the day before she died.
Senior ADA Nalda Charles says text messages show Wilson couldn't handle Thomas's rejection towards him before strangling her inside of her Roswell apartment.
My sister was attacked and murdered in her home.
Investigators discovered Thomas and Wilson had only dated briefly after meeting on a dating app. Attorneys say after Thomas rejected his advances, he found where she lived and attacked her in her home.
This was a surprise attack. She did not know her attacker was coming that morning.
Jurors reached a guilty verdict in 30 minutes after seeing crime scene photos and hearing from Thomas's roommate who found her body lying in a tub.
She only met him in public places. She would even meet him outside of friends' houses in parking lots. So it is very scary because Ms. Thomas did everything that you would, want to do.
And Wilson showed very little remorse during that sentencing. He declined speaking or giving any statements during Tuesday's hearing. Reporting in downtown, Ashley Lincoln, WSB Tonight.
Okay, this took place in Fulton County, Georgia, this crime. You hear that they met on a dating app. I will reveal that dating app when I bring you the information in the article. They dated briefly. She met him in public places. She unfriended him. So, unfriended him where? On the dating app? And or did they also... What else I'm trying to say? Facebook friends, IG, or it was just a dating app? I'm curious. Sometimes it's not recommended that you friend a new person on another app, such as IG, Facebook, for the obvious reasons. Because people talk freely on these apps, such as Facebook, and naturally you can give away your location by just, talking about where you went to eat dinner or, hey, I live right down the street from the park. And now people can get a general idea of where you live. So that's where I'm confused because I found some information that gives more detail than what these videos are revealing. I'm still trying to understand if she met him in public places, how did he find her? Because if I walk off, you walk off, how are you following me back home to find out where I am? How did he find out where she lived? I'm very curious to know how he found her because that's not being mentioned, how he found her. So we have two people who met on a date site, met briefly. Did they have sexual relations? I'd like to know. But one would say, well, they couldn't have had it because she said she only met him in public places. So that's why I kept trying to figure out how he found her place. Will we find out that she slipped up some type of way in conversation, gave her address, gave her location or general area, or even just mentioned the apartment complex? Won't take long to find a person because if you start talking in conversation with people you tell things without maybe even thinking about what you're saying. As I said, location, name of the place, a street. You give a description of your car, what kind of car you're driving. So see, we don't really know what all they discussed in the short time that they went on these public dates. So that's what needs to be addressed, although she is deceased now. He's gotten a life sentence. What did they talk about? What changed her mind about not wanting to see him again, unfriending him? Which app did she unfriend him on? Was it the date site or something else, such as Facebook, IG? Did she block him on the app? I'm just going to assume she did. Did she also block his telephone number from her phone? And the one thing I've learned about that blocking, it doesn't do anything because people are still able to call, leave a damn voicemail, and still text. I've noticed that past year or two. So it's like, well, what's the purpose of the blocking? I don't know if it's just the phone carrier that Queen uses, because I need to ask other people that. Can you still receive voicemails and texts after you've blocked somebody? Just curious. Okay. I don't know, Skylar. I'm kind of curious. Because, that's the thing about these videos. They only give you a little bit of information in the videos. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. This is a two-part live. I'll be going live back-to-back today because I've got some a lot of stories to bring you that I wasn't able to bring you earlier in the week. So just if you're bored or unbored and you want to join the Queen most of the day, I have 3 lives to bring you. This live here, the next live will be about Gypsy Rose because I couldn't put it in the title and I didn't really want to put it in with this subject matter. And then the last live today will be pertaining to Sebastian Rogers. We're now at the 5-month mark pertaining to Sebastian. Okay, let's give you some more information pertaining to Fabiola Thomas. She's no longer alive. She's been unalived by Anthony Wilson. That's his name. They are both black. I kind of think she's foreign because the people who spoke at the jury sounded like they had an accent, either Jamaican, Bahamian, or African accents, parents, relatives. Keep your ring. A Georgia jury took 30 minutes to convict a man who tracked down a woman to her home and strangled her after his proposal was rejected. Atlanta Black Star is the source. 30 minutes. It took the jury 30 minutes. That's quick. That's very quick. But as you heard in the audio, once they saw the pictures of the decedent, it did not take them long to reach a guilty verdict. A Georgia judge sentenced a man to life in prison for killing a woman who rejected his intense romantic advances after the two met on a dating app. Antonio Wilson, 43, was convicted and sentenced on Tuesday for brutal murder of 39-year-old Fabiola Thomas in June 2019. It would take several more years before her family received justice. Investigators learned Wilson and Thomas connected on the dating app Plenty of Fish and only met face-to-face a few times before Thomas ultimately decided she didn't want to move forward with a romantic relationship. Miss Thomas did everything that you would think you should do. She told her friends where she was going, and she would only meet him in public places, Fulton County Assistant District Attorney Abigail Potter told WSB-TV. Wilson, however, was convinced that he and Thomas were ready to make a giant leap forward and told her he planned to propose. Thomas was unequivocally against an engagement and communicated those feelings to Wilson through text. "I don't give a redacted about a ring," Thomas wrote to Wilson. "Keep your ring. I'm not your woman. Never was. Stop claiming me because I never claimed you," quote unquote. She also wrote in another text, "You crazy. I don't want nothing from a man I barely communicate with. Jewelry, money don't mean nothing to me if you don't know who I am." So here we have some not so nice exchanges. She's telling him she's not interested in his money, jewelry. She's not trying to marry him. So once again, how long did they talk on the phone, video chat, whatever? How long before he propose? I'm curious. She also wrote in another, okay, sorry, I already said that. So basically she's telling him he's crazy and he doesn't know who she is. So obviously this is a short exchange of two people talking by phone, text. So did he call her often? Sporadic? So did he call her once a week, twice a week? What was the dynamic between the two as far as communication? Because she's saying here, don't mean nothing to me if you don't know who I am. Which naturally, couple weeks, couple days, you don't know anybody. And frankly, you can be with a person a year or two and still don't know them. Those texts were sent just a day before Wilson murdered Thomas. Wilson would track down where Thomas lived. According to the investigation, he broke into her apartment in Roswell on the morning of June 8, 2019, choked her to death, and then left her body in the bathtub. This was a surprise attack. She did not know her attacker was coming that morning, said Senior ADA Nalda Charles. So here we go once again. You now know that he broke into the apartment. She had a roommate. So that means he had to have sat outside the home and watch who was coming and going, assumingly. He didn't know who she stayed with unless she told it. So did she ever tell him she lived with a roommate? Because they're saying he found her address. Well, how? That should have been mentioned in these videos. Tell us how he found out. How did he find her? Did she not pay attention getting into her car or bus or Uber? So that means he'd have to go right to a car in order to find her. This is very bizarre to me because nobody can just find where you live. Unless they're doing one of those searches through one of those apps and your address pops up. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't know. Okay. Once again, this was a surprise attack. She did not know he would be there that morning. Thomas's roommate told police he heard a scream that morning. So this is strange. So now the roommate heard a scream. So see, this is what I'm saying. This story is bizarre. Allegedly, let's say she never told him where she lived. So how did he find where she stayed? Why would you risk breaking into a house that you don't even know who lives there? Could be she had a house full of kids, or as you hear, she had a roommate and a male roommate. So how long was she living in this apartment? How long did she have a roommate? All this is weird to me. Now we find out it's a man staying there. So now we're also hearing the man heard a scream. So you heard a scream and you didn't do anything? Oh, wow. Okay. This is not making any sense to Queen. Thomas's roommate told police he heard a scream that morning. After he found her body in the bathtub, he called 911. Authorities said her body showed signs of trauma. And this is the most chilling part because she's getting ready for work. She's in her pajamas, Potter said. Detectives also learned that Thomas's phone went missing from her apartment, but eventually tracked it to Clayton County, where Wilson lived. Wilson was arrested and charged with malice murder in October 2019. So this case was in the court systems for some time. 19, you're talking about almost 5 years of wrangling in the courts, sitting in the courts. This is a very bizarre story because I thought the roommate would have been gone. So now to say, I heard her scream, people are going to ask, well, where were you when you heard her scream? Make it make sense. Where were you when you heard your roommate scream? Because there's no way you're going to tell me you were in the apartment. Please tell me you weren't in the apartment. So what was this person's work schedule? In order to hear her scream, she's in her pajamas, so he caught her off guard. So let's backtrack because this ain't making no sense. She never told him where she lived, allegedly. So how did he find her? It's a surprise attack. She's in her PJs. She's getting ready for work. The killer, allegedly, he don't know nothing about what's going on in her house, where she stayed, none of this. And now you're going to put in this little bit of information that's big information. The roommate heard her scream. So where was the roommate? I don't get this story. Once again, he was charged with malice murder, October 2019. During his trial, a Fulton County jury was presented with witness statements and crime scene photographs. Witnesses told police they saw Wilson walking around Thomas's car in the parking lot of her apartment complex just a half hour before the home invasion. Okay, so now we have new information. He's outside, so he knew her car. Ding, ding, ding. What did I just say? Did she ever tell him what type of car she had? Did she post the car to social media, the date site? How did he know which car was hers? This is weird to me. How did he know where she lived? How did he know her car? They had to have been talking personal. I'm sorry, because it's not adding up. Because you got to show me how he found her to even know where she lived and also her car. Come on, this is just too much now. So witnesses say they saw him walking in the parking lot around her car a half hour before the invasion. It only took 30 minutes for jurors to deliberate before returning the guilty verdict. Wilson will serve life sentence without the possibility of parole. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Wilson said her office's domestic violence unit prosecuted the case. This is really a sad case, Willis said. It's one of the hardest crimes to make sure that we combat. Okay. Thomas died just a week before her 40th birthday, according to family members. My sister enjoyed and loved life, Thomas's brother, Myrtle Charles, said. She had dreams and goals she wanted to accomplish, yet that all died with her when she was gasping for her last breath. Atlanta Black Star is the source. This case makes no sense to me. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. What is missing from this story? A whole damn lot. A whole damn lot. Somebody help the queen out because something's missing here. I'm trying to understand the obvious. How did he find her address? How did he know her car? Because let's just say he has that app on his phone that can give you personal information. You know, when you pay to look up people's information, you pay a couple dollars a month or whatever per transaction to find somebody's personal information. Let's just say her information is out there on the internet, her address. You still don't know which car she's in unless you paid for the address lookup and then you sat in the parking lot and watched her come in or out. Bingo card. Is that what we're saying here? He paid one of those apps to find where she lives, or it just came up in a natural Google search, because sometimes you don't even have to pay. It'll pop up sometimes in Google search. So let's say he went through Google search or paid the app to find her address. So that means he drove there and looked around, drove around, sat outside the parking lot. Let me rephrase. He sat in the parking lot, parked his car, probably parked back then a little ways over so she wouldn't notice his car, because we don't know if she knew what type of car he had. So we don't know anything because something's missing from the story. So let's say he had an advantage of her building somewhere in the parking lot. So he's obviously sitting morning, noon, or night to watch her come in or go out for verification, let's say. Because just because something comes up in Google don't mean a person actually lives there, or even on a pay site. People move around a lot. So at some point he gets the address, he makes his way there. He's still got to verify that she's at the location, coming and going. So that means he had to go there by either foot, car, bus, train. I would say he had to be in a car, because he also committed the crime and then left. And I hadn't heard he walked away, but just that he's walking around her car 30 minutes before the home intrusion. So he's made his way there, walking around her car looking. It's all bizarre. So now you make your way into her apartment, break in, assault her, strangle her in the bathtub, steal her phone, walk out, leave. How did he leave? And how does the roommate fit into this? I heard her scream. I have a problem with this story. I have a major problem with this story. Because the jury should have been asking that question. Hey, judge, we got a question. We need the district attorney to come back out here and tell us where the hell was the roommate? Because you are allowed to ask questions as a jury. Where was the roommate? Make it make sense. Please tell me the roommate wasn't in the bed with their door locked or unlocked, afraid to come out because they hear a disturbance. Is that what you're saying to us? Because this story doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it sounds very sketchy, Akira. Because that's what you're telling us. Because the roommate can't be but a few places. So let's weigh the options. The roommate is in the apartment, in their bed, or in their room, also getting ready for work. And they hear the intrusion and they did nothing. Is that what you're telling us? Because you're not really telling us much in this information. I'll have to find another article because something's missing here. So the roommate is in there allegedly doing what exactly? Sleeping, getting ready for work, just waking up, scared to come out for fear of their safety. Then one's going to say, well, why didn't you call 911 to say, hey, please hurry. Somebody's in here hurting my roommate. I'm scared to come out my room. Help me understand. Then it says the roommate found her in the tub. Let me make sure I reread that. So I don't want to repeat anything that's not correct. This is bizarre. One second. Hello, everybody. In the chat, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, witnesses told police they saw Wilson walking around Thomas' car in the parking lot of her apartment complex just a half hour before the home invasion. Once again, jury voted 30 minutes, deliberated. Life sentence. Let's go back. Hold on. She's getting ready for work. She's in her pajamas. Her phone went missing from her apartment, but eventually tracked it to Clayton County, where Wilson lived. Go back up. He broke into her apartment in Roswell on the morning of June 8th, 2019, choked her to death, and then left her body in the bathtub. So where was she when he choked her? In the bathroom, going into the bathroom, sitting on the toilet, what? Running the water, what? Because she couldn't have been dressed because they said she was in her pajamas. Something's off here. This was a surprise attack. She did not know her attacker was coming that morning. So, one would say, because she's in her pajamas, how she was placed, where she was placed, gave the illusion she wasn't expecting him to come in. And naturally, they would see that a person broke in by the damage to the door. Door jimmied or kicked in. Thomas's roommate told police he heard a scream that morning. After he found her body in the bathtub, he called 911. Authorities said her body showed signs of trauma. And that is the most chilling part because she's getting ready for work. She's in her pajamas, Potter said. Once again, he stole her phone, Mr. Wilson, and took it to his home in Clayton County And that's where they pinged it, I guess, and found it. Her cell phone. Yeah. Phone went missing from her apartment, but eventually tracked it to Clayton County, where Wilson lived. Where was the roommate? Because this is a bad story. So you mean to tell me somebody was in there the whole time while she's being attacked? That's the only way I can look at it. I can't look at it no other way. I'm confused. I'm just doing a little checking, everybody. Oh, wow. Help me understand. So the roommate, you were in the house with her. So were you asleep? Were you asleep? Heard the wranglings going on and didn't get up? Too afraid to get up? What happened? Akira says, the roommate heard a scream and then found her body. Did he not hear her struggling? How long between the scream and roommate finding her body? Well, that's the question that I don't hear an answer to. The investigation began on June 8, 2019, after police received a panicked phone call from Thomas's roommate who said he found her in her bathtub and that something bad had happened to her, police said. Fox 5 Atlanta and 11 Alive reported at the time. Police found her unresponsive at the site and she was later pronounced dead at the hospital. A medical examiner ruled several months later that her death was a homicide. During the investigation, authorities learned that Thomas and Wilson had met on a dating app shortly before her murder. Ms. Thomas did everything that you would think she should do. So this is going over the same thing I read to you before. She told her friends where she was going. She would meet him in public places. She did not want to continue seeing him. Wilson could not handle the rejection. So this goes back to the same information I read to you before about her saying, you know, I don't want your ring. I'm not your woman. Well, keep your ring. I'm not your woman. Never was. Stop claiming me because I never claimed you. This is what she put in a text to Mr. Wilson. On the day before she was killed, she unfriended Thomas, though it wasn't clear which messaging platform they were friends on. Exactly. That's what I asked. Where did she unfriend him? Because when we think of unfriend, we think of Facebook, IG. But also on date sites, you can be friends. On certain date sites, you can be friends. So did she unfriend him on a date site or did they become Facebook friends? See, this is where I have the problem. If this is supposed to be a short meeting, because I don't know what short is. Short to one person is not short to somebody else. Short could be 2 weeks, 3 days, 2 months. So you're not giving us a time frame of how long they were interacting with each other. How they were interacting. Phone calls, text, more text, video chat, what? Messenger, what? IG messaging, what? Messaging on a date site, because you can message on a date site, receive phone calls on a date site, video chat on a date site. So people are going to want to know which sites they were messaging, video chatting, phone, what? Make it make sense. How did he find her? How long were they talking interchangeably? How many times did he call her? How many times did he video chat? All that matters. I mean, she's dead, of course, but it still matters. Because you got some holes here and people are going to ask questions. And the biggest hole right now is the obvious. How did he find her? In the house saying he heard a scream and then got up and found her body. So some are going to say, well, did you lie in there the whole time while your friend's being strangled and you were scared to come out because you didn't want to get strangled, which I understand that. But that ain't helping the friend out. But then they probably say, well, if I yell through the door, hey, what's going on in there? Hell, they might try to kick the door in. So I get it. It's a scary situation to be in. And you have a killer, a violent person in the house. You don't want to end up dead because you are now a witness. Oh, Lord, what a mess. Did the roommate hear the struggle? Because I don't see how you couldn't. Because you can't hear the scream and not the struggle. There's no way. You're going to hear some ruffling, some muffledness. Please stop. Put your hands, get your hands off of me. What are you doing here? How'd you get in here? It had to be loud. And let's really go in the belly of the beast, because now this is where the queen gets real ignorant. But rightfully so. Come on, queen, because somebody ain't going to want to hear it, but it don't matter. You had to have heard the door be kicked in. Bingo card. I'll let that sit right there. You had to have heard the door kicked in. If he kicked it in, because how did he get in? Screwdriver? Jimmy the door? She didn't run to see, well, what's this noise at the door? Make it make sense. How did he get in? Kick the door in or jimmy it with a screwdriver? Or credit card? What? Make it make sense. See, you don't even tell us that. You just say he broke in. So did he come by door, window? Was she on the first floor? See how the plot thickens? First floor, second floor, third floor. What are we talking? Because the apartments didn't look like they had sliding doors. They look like your typical 3 landing building with a door and just windows. So what we have to ask ourselves, did they have sliding doors on the back of the apartment where you could, enter out of another way? Help us understand. And in Atlanta, to keep your doors locked and a glass door shut. And it's best to put a stick in your windows and also a stick in a glass door because people can jimmy those glass doors. So did they have glass doors? Number one. What floor did they live on? Number two. Because all that's going to matter on how he entered. Because see, I'm not getting any information. So that's why I just said, did he kick in the door? Did he jimmy a door? Did they have a glass door? Were they on the first floor, second floor? How did the perpetrator get in? And once in, how is it the roommate didn't know there was an altercation going on? Because I refuse to believe you didn't hear something. You said you heard a scream. So if you heard a scream, you have to hear tussling around, banging around. Because we don't even know where he attacked her. Hallway, kitchen, living room, entry into the bathroom, in the bathroom. There's no way you're being choked and it's silent. Going to hear some type of gurgling something. It's a very bizarre story. That's my information coming out of Georgia, everybody. You all to sit here and try to figure it out because it's quite wicked. Second story, Sonia Massie. Woo, Lord have mercy, what a mess. We're going to briefly hear from the family. And then we're going to hear what is happening with Mr. Sean Grayson because he had a hearing on Thursday. So we're going to go over that information and then we'll resume this live stream and get on with the next live stream for this afternoon. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $BigAngie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream and any other time. Thank you so very much. Sonia Massie, everybody. Oh, what a debacle. What a debacle. Jeepers creepers. Hottest story running. ABC 3340 is the source. I'm going to briefly hear the manner cause of death. Mr. Ben Crump will be speaking.
obviously, you have Sonia Massie with her beautiful smile. But you have, as they said, the injury right beneath the left eye. And then they talk about how the exit is posterior left surface of the upper neck, below the ear, below her hairline. Now, why this is so significant, is it confirms that Deputy Sean Grayson shot in a downward trajectory. He shot in a downward trajectory. This autopsy findings, coupled with the video where we see her ducking, saying, "Sorry, sir, sorry." He shot when she's making a motion coming up. That's how you get the downward trajectory. And you see on the video his arm. He aims down. He literally aims down. You see his arm brace and a downward trajectory. And we know that he walked 2 to 3 steps to his right, out away from the counter, where it was, we believe, from objective observation, to get a better shot at Sonia Massie. And when Sonia Massie was staring at the barrel of his gun, we see on the video what she did. She stooped down and said, "Sorry, sorry." And we believe that the bullet, the shot, was shot while she was in a stupid position coming up. And that's how you get the down trajectory. And the autopsy confirms what everybody already knew on the video, that this was just a senseless, unnecessary, excessive use of force. Completely unnecessary. Certainly not justified. I mean, how can you justify this? She's all of 5'1", 110 pounds. He's approximately 6'5" tall, approximately 260 pounds. Completely excessive. Completely excessive. And so we will continue to provide you updates, evidence as we get it, because we're not taking for granted that America wants to see Sonia Massie like Deputy Sean Grayson saw her. We want to make sure that America sees her as a human being worthy of dignity and respect and consideration. We don't take it for granted. Your actions speak so loud, we need not hear your words. And until we get a conviction and a sentence, we will continue to keep our foot on the gas and full steam ahead and fight for justice for Sonia Massie. Full steam ahead. We understand far too often, especially as it relates to Black women in America, there's not equal justice. There's not equal justice. And just like Sonia Massie said, and I continue to use her words, until this discriminatory criminal justice system gives full justice for the death of Sonia Massie, we rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Justice for Sonia Massie. Justice for Sonia Massie. Justice for Sonia Massie.
Justice for Sonia Massie. Yes.
At this time, you will hear from Uncle Raymond Massey, Mr. Wilburn, her father, and Miss Donna, her mother, couldn't be with us today. And I really appreciate Malachi being here. This is very emotional. Even seeing these pictures, even though he hasn't been able to watch the video, because that's his mom, and you can't. Who wants to see their mother get killed like an animal? But even this was emotional for him, but he understood why we have to do it so we can get justice for his mother. So we're going to hear from Raymond Massey, and he's going to talk to you about the families continuing to struggle in these difficult times as they fight for justice. And then we're here to have his daughter talk to you. Mr. Raymond.
Thank you. I wanted to tell you that I loved Sonia very much. She was a beautiful Black queen. She is the only family member that me and my wife was talking last night about. I've never once seen her angry or mad. She was always full of love, and she loved her kids and God. I call my sister Donna, Malachi, Summer, and their parents daily. And it hurts me so bad that the last time I spoke with Malachi, he had told me he finally got a little rest, and that was just the day before yesterday. And I can tell you that his sister is having nightmares to the point where we have to check the room. That just makes me so angry to see my family hurt as they do. It was so hard. It's hard for me to see my daughter and my nephew had to go in the house and clean up blood. And that just hurts me to see my family hurt. And after what Attorney Crump had talked about the autopsy, that is exactly why he needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Thank you very much, Mr. Massey. Now you will hear from Shadia Massey, who is her first cousin, Raymond's daughter. And even though she has 3 other sisters, she was raised with Shadia, and they were like sisters. And Shadia was the first family member to arrive at the scene. And obviously the emotion of seeing your sister, blood everywhere, and how she tried to clean the blood up. So Malachi and Summer, her children, wouldn't have to see their mother's blood when they came in the house to get their clothes. So Shadia Massey will try to speak to you from the heart.
Hello. Sonia meant the world to me. I loved her so much. This tragedy has been too much on my family. Her kids, her daughter cannot sleep at night, y'all. She's in one household, I'm in another household. For her to go to the bathroom, she has to be on FaceTime with me. For her to get a drink of water, she has to call us before she get out of her bed. You know, this is the hardest thing that we have ever been through as a Massey. It just breaks my heart that our family has to go through this.
Justice for Sonia Massie. Finally, you'll hear from Malachi who was the first one notified that his mother had been killed. And just as he explained to us what they told him, you see, was defined as an autopsy. So, Malachi, if you would share what you know in your heart.
Well, you know that they told me that my mom, you know, she got shot in her eye and it came out her neck over there. And I don't know, like I haven't been able to sleep for real. The only time I really feel comfortable sleeping is when I'm like just on the floor. I can't even sleep in my bed. Like I don't know, like this is just I really don't have words. Like I've been said, I don't have words for this. But the first night I don't go to my mother's house, this happens. How? Why? And I wonder if I was there, if he would have did anything to me. I don't know. For real. That's all I can say.
Let's stop there. Mercy. A lot to digest. Interesting he would say that. If I was there, what could have happened to me? Exactly, because he would have probably jumped up and it would have been on like Donkey Kong. Would have been probably another fatality. Why wasn't he there? Did her children live with her? Because I was curious when I was seeing, everything unfold in the house and learned that she had children. We also heard from him later saying he had took his father to work that morning. That's how he found out about the unaliving of his mother through a random phone call. And that was kind of bizarre. He said he didn't recognize the number. You'll hear that later. So who was that person that called him to tell him that his mother had been shot? And as you hear, he can't sleep in a bed. I find that interesting. Most people say, well, I can see a person, scared to sleep. They might want to sit upright, on a chair or sofa because, lying down is just too painful to even sleep. But he says he feels more comfortable sleeping on the floor. That's scary to me. Other child needs reassurance, going and coming and getting up out of bed herself, needing someone to video chat, to go in the bathroom. Man, that's bad when you're afraid to go in your own restroom. Whew. This is a lot to digest.
He lives with her father. I live with my father.
Okay, they live with their parents. So let's go right there. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that, everybody. So now my question has been answered. Somebody asked him that. He did not live with his mother, nor did his sister. So we're going to ask that question. Why didn't the children live with her? Is it because of her mental illness? Were the children ever removed from her care? What's the issue with the children? Because I was questioning that too. I just never mentioned it during the live stream. But why were her children not living with her? As you hear in this commentary, he lived with his father. The other sister lived with her father. So why were her children not living with her? Were they removed by the state? Did she place them with other relatives? What was going on there? And did her mental situation cause her not to have her children? Family stepped in, said, well, you're not in any shape to have children. How long were the children living in different locations? Curious.
With their mother, she was having mental illnesses, and they made the decision to convince her. They said their father, while she seeks help.
Okay, there you have it.
That both of them were going every day to check on their mother.
Hold on, let's let you hear that again.
The bathroom, she has to be on FaceTime with me. For her to get a drink of water, she has to call us before she get out her bed. This is the hardest thing that we have ever been through as a Massey. It just breaks my heart that our family has to go through this.
Justice for Sonia Massie. Finally, you'll hear from Malachi, who was the first one notified that his mother had been killed. And just as he explained to us what they told him, you see, was defined as an autopsy. So, Malachi, if you would Share what's on your heart.
Well, you know that they told me that my mom, you know, she got shot in her eye and it came out her neck. And I don't know, like I haven't been able to sleep for real. The only time I really feel comfortable sleeping is when I'm like just on the floor. I can't even sleep in my bed. Like I don't know, like this is just I really don't have words. Like I've been said, I don't have words for this. But the first night I don't go to my mother's house, this happens. How?
First night he doesn't go. Okay.
And I wonder if I was there, if he would have did anything to me. I don't know. For real. That's all I can say.
So imagine that. Once again, we'll repeat that. The first night he did not go to his mother's house, this incident happens. You also now hear, you will hear why he and the sister were not living with her because of her mental illness. I think the diagnosis that she was schizophrenic. It's very interesting information. This is why I asked those questions before, because I wanted to hear everything about the person who did the shooting, to get a better understanding in my head of what the hell really happened in this house. Did they assume there was something wrong with her at the door? Because I told myself the vibe was off as soon as they got there. That was obvious. The vibe was off inside of the house. The vibe was off. And then naturally, the incident that took place, the vibe was off. And I said that when I heard him ask her, are you mentally okay? Not to justify what was done to her was right. But did he see something in her at the door? That something's not right with her, which led to his feelings once he got in. Something is still not right with her. You know, the way she was talking and fumbling, looking for ID, this and that. And then once she got the pot, it was like, okay, I'm getting a bad vibe with her. And everybody's, you know, going on and on about the rebuking Jesus and all that. As I had brought you commentary from two people giving their commentary from Court TV, maybe his vibe was off once he got to the door. Inside, something's not right with this lady. Then once she had the pot, his mind's telling him, you know what? Something's not right. Now, as I said, no justification for how all of that went down. But as this one guy was trying to explain on Court TV, his mind was telling him something. Now, what was her mind telling her? Don't know. We don't know what either one was thinking because he's not speaking naturally as an attorney, and she's not here to tell us what she was thinking. But it's an interesting dynamic if you really watch the video and pay attention to everybody's demeanor and how everyone is talking. As I said, everyone's going to have his or her own opinion and their perception, and that's what the guy from Court TV was trying to explain. Not to make excuses for what he did, but maybe he was thinking something about her demeanor while everything was playing out from the front door to inside, people bickering about why they went back in. They went back in because of the car outside had a broken window. So I think that was the reason why they went back in. He's trying to get more information about the car because he said that before he was getting ready to walk off from her door, which I wish he had just damn left. But he didn't. He was like, oh, by the way, about the window. So that's what got the cops back to go in her house. And I just wish they had never went back in. Maybe just told her, hey, can you come back and bring the ID to the door? Just bring the damn ID to the door. Either way, ID to the door, or when you walked in, you saw she was fumbling and rumbling with that. I don't know. That's the thing. You can't go back to say what somebody should have done, not done. We know it was vicious, 3 times shooting. That's common sense. Could have used a taser. I don't even know if it would have been better even with a taser, quite frankly. I think about that. Would a taser have been better? Probably not. Because you're now talking about hot water, steam, with electricity. I think that would have been a recipe for disaster. It's just a jacked up situation.
She lives with her father. I live with my father.
And I will say this, up until just a few weeks, Malachi and Summer were staying with their mother. She was having mental illnesses, and they made the decision it was best that they stay with their father while she seeks. With the strap, because he said, because I was working, this is the first day.
Trying to get back to what he was just saying. Hold on.
This happens. And then,
And I wonder if I was there, if he would have did anything to me. I don't know. For real. That's all I can say. She lives with her father. I live with my father.
and I will say this, up until just a few weeks, Malachi and Summer were staying with their mother. She was having mental illnesses, and they made the decision it was best that they stay with their father while she seeks help. And that both of them were going every day to check on their mother, be with their mother. And the first time I talked to Malachi, he was so distraught because he said, because I was working, this is the first day I didn't get to her, and this happens. And then the only other thing, Malachi, you may want to tell them is, do you think law enforcement came there earlier that day?
Okay, it was an incident that happened earlier that day.
Okay.
And I talked to two officers or whatever, and I believe that it's the same officer that shot my mother. I talked to his partner first. Then the second officer, that's the one that I think the one that did that. I talked to them, and they told me that because she was driving herself to the hospital or something. She wasn't even at the house when this was going on, but she was driving herself to the hospital. They told me that they were going to go there to help her, and then this happens.
So she was seeking help because she was trying to get help. And it's like Mr. Wilbur said, she was trying to get help. She needed a helping hand, not to put it to the face.
That's right.
Oh,
She
Lord.
just needed those officers to extend an ounce of humanity, not to kill her. And
Let's stop right there. Oh, Lord, it gets worse. Okay, so what's the truth? Because I asked this the other day in the live. Because I like to hear everything, weigh everything out. So I asked you all a few days ago, did they know she had a mental problem? Now we have the son saying, I think these are the same guys that were here earlier. Well, see, that doesn't make any sense because when the EMT arrives, what did she say? She said, we were here earlier. Don't you think the EMT would have said to the cop, oh yeah, you were here too? She didn't say that. That's why I always tell people, if you want to get a better understanding, keep replaying the information. The white lady walked in. Okay? And they're standing near the body. She specifically said, we were here earlier. So basically, she's talking about her team, the EMT people. Don't you think if he was there on the scene, wouldn't she have said, oh, hey, you were here too earlier? Man, how did it go downhill like this? I think a person would say that. Like, how did this happen? We all were here together. This is baffling. So were these officers there earlier? And what's earlier? Because I don't know the shifts. If they're doing 8-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, don't know. See, all that's going to be relevant too. And now that the son is sitting here saying he thinks these were the same officers or the one that shot her was there, that is all bizarre because when he's walking out to his car near the end of the video, he's cursing, F, F, F. And then he says he gets on the dispatch to call. So I don't know if he's role playing or just trying to, spin his own narrative on this. He radios, is she a 1096? And as I explained in that live stream, A 1096 is somebody who's had contact with an officer. So all this is now getting really grainy. We're hearing mental illness. EMT comes in. She doesn't allude to the fact that they all were there earlier. She just says we, like her and her team were there. Now you have the son saying, I think this is the same guy that was there earlier, or the, whomever. So we need to find that out. Are these the same cops that were there earlier? If he was there earlier, then why would he be radioing to the dispatch? Is she a 1096? That wouldn't make any sense unless he's trying to sweeten the pot of whatever the hell's going on. Cover it up. I don't know. Then we have the issue of what they told the family and the nurses at the hospital. You're now covering up the fact that a cop shot the woman, which you shouldn't have said anything. You should have just said, ma'am, sir, you need to speak to our superior about the incident. We can't speak on it. That's all y'all had to do. Even if you knew that he shot her, should have just said, we cannot speak on what happened. You'll need to speak to a sergeant or a chief or whomever. That would have been the end of that conversation. But lying saying she killed herself and then switching it up, it was an intruder or whichever direction it went. Come on. Just making it worse. The situation's already worse. Why lie afterwards? You weren't there. You didn't see the shooting. So why lie about it? Just say, I don't know. Even if you knew, just say, I can't speak on it. All this is weird. Everybody is, damn, just making the situation worse than it has to be. And it's already jacked up. So don't, as they say in the street, it's an old saying, you don't add fuel to a fire. You're adding fuel to the fire. It didn't even have to, oh man, it's like role playing. But that's the thing about role playing. You can't really role play because you're not in the story. It's just, it's easy to judge and say who did what, who should have done what. But I'm not there to say what the hell either one of them are thinking. But I'm going to use my better judgment now. She had mental problems. And I think they sensed that on the porch, whether they had been there or not. That's why I said when I watched the video, yes, I'd already known she was dead when I watched the video. But in all, in me watching this transaction with them being on the porch, blah, 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 I'm saying to myself, this vibe is off here. This vibe is off. You know why it's off? Because we now know we possibly got, ego-driven cop, got all type of other shit going on. The woman is mentally ill. The vibe was just off. That's the best way I can put it. That's what I saw when I watched the video. And I'm talking about way before they ever went in the house. The vibe was off. And I knew something bad would probably happen, even if I hadn't even known that she was dead. Because I'm looking at the vibe of everybody talking. And it's no cohesiveness in the conversation. And I know how people are. Because I'm a human. Everybody can't deal with certain situations, which means possibly, it's obvious, he didn't have no business being no cop. Especially when you go dig in the Bill of the Beast and you see all this other nonsense about 6 different places, part-time, full-time, whatever, reprimand, accusations of inappropriate behavior, the DUIs. It was just a recipe for disaster, period. Whether he unalived this lady or not, he didn't have no business being a cop. That's first and foremost, okay? So then you've got the past coming out, what happened in the house. Now we learn she's mentally ill. We now see her children were told they couldn't be in the house with her. So that would let you know there was a whole lot going on with her. And the fact that she was supposed to be driving herself to the hospital. Well, what was she driving? So this is why I always tell people you need to always pay attention to everything being said, because I knew there was more to this story. I always know there's more to a story. That's why I let stuff play out first before I really start just, going in on my opinion. You don't have to agree with what I say or what I think, because in the end, it's just my opinion. I knew there was way more to the story. I looked at everything, as I said, from the moment they stepped on the porch, walking around the house, the windows broke out. That told me everything I needed to know. I told myself, you can't really bank on what she's saying because I had a feeling she was mental. just from the interaction at the door, the interaction about the car. So now the son is telling you she was driving. How much you want to bet she was driving that car? Because where's the other car? That's what made them go back in the house, because they wanted to get her ID. And he was, in his mind, he was focusing on that damn truck she had out there. That's why they went back inside. That's why he said, I need to see your ID. So they go back inside. If he had just stood outside and said, well, go get your ID, bring it back to the door, maybe she'd still be alive today had he just stood outside the door. But something about that truck was bothering him. That was the whole purpose of when he was walking out the door or holding the door up, when he said, oh, and about the truck. Something was bothering the cop about the truck. And now, hell, I'm been sitting here trying to figure it out myself. What's up with the truck? Even though she's dead, but I'm still curious. Whose truck was that? So now you have the son saying, oh, she was driving. This ain't good. Are we going to find out she beat those windows out of that truck, that glass? Just asking. Because we never got to the understanding of whose truck that is. That's why when he was standing in her house, he mentioned it again about the truck. And then she slowly says, oh, yeah. Oh, it had a dent. And then it went from a dent to him saying, oh, what about the window? And then she says, oh, yeah, that was done earlier. Bingo card. This is why I always tell people, you got to listen to the information. What are the odds? The son is now saying why they have not been living with her for, up to a few weeks. Ben Crump tells that. She's having mental issues. They were there earlier. They or somebody was there earlier, EMTs, whomever. She's obviously having an episode. She's allegedly driving a car. There's only one car parked out there that we can see. Are we going to find out? I'm just asking. Who broke the window out? Because now that you say she was driving, so we go from not knowing anything about the truck, the owner of the truck, she's acting like somebody just pulled it up, but then when she gets in the house, he asks the question again because that was weighing on him. He knew something was up about that damn truck. So she finally says, oh yeah, that was done earlier. I got a feeling whatever was going on with her earlier, for the EMTs to be called, for her to go to the hospital allegedly to drive, it has something to do with that damn SUV. That's my take on that. With this new information. It's very wicked. Wicked, 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 wicked. Lord have mercy. Okay, let's see. Where was I?
Like we said, mental illness is real. You all may have family members who are struggling with their mental health. They deserve.
Oh, sorry about that.
With their mental health, they deserve compassion and consideration, not excessive, unjustified force, like we saw in that video. So we continue to try to say that Sonia Massie, life matters. She did. Man, when you hear Malachi talk about what kind of mother she was, how she worked overtime to help him get a car and everything so he can get a job, how she talked to him about balancing budgets and about the Bible and about trying to work and be responsible. I mean, she was doing her best to be a person who helped people in the world, especially her children. She did not deserve this. She did not deserve this. So, Malachi, if you got anything else you want to say. Okay. Thank you so much, Malachi. We will try to take some of your questions if you have any.
So, I'm sorry, but Malachi was describing earlier on July 5th that there was a response that the same officers
that he said he believes it was the same officers. That's why he believes they knew she was struggling with her mental health.
And she had driven herself to the hospital for treatment.
She had sought consultation, yes.
She had not been in an inpatient program. She was under a doctor's care.
Yeah, well, Mr. Wilborn said it, remember the other person, how she was trying to get consultation because she was struggling with her mental health.
So,
yes, sir.
Democrat believes that officers went to his mom's house earlier
That day.
The day before July 5th. Right?
Oh, day before?
July 5th.
July 5th. Do we know why they went to their house?
No, some incident happened. She was on her way to the hospital when she was talking to Malachi, but he talked to the officers too.
I talked to them and I was letting them know what was going on. I really don't know what happened before I got there, but I just know that I talked to them and let them know what's wrong with my mother.
So you talked to one of the officers by phone?
No, in person, face to face. Yes, they was at my house.
You were at the house?
Yeah.
And visiting your mom?
And she drove herself to the hospital because I don't know why she did, but she drove herself to the hospital. When I got there, it was just the police there. My mother called me.
So they left.
This happened, and she told me the police was there. And when I got to her house, she wasn't there. She was calling me, telling me that she's driving herself to the hospital, and they were outside of the house.
So you don't know who called, when called. So she drove herself to the hospital after the encounter with the police, right, that day.
And you told them about her struggle with mental health.
Yeah, and I just tried to, like, the whole week, like, before all of this happened, I've been trying to get her in a mental health. We actually did get her in a mental health place in St. Louis, but they let her come back. I don't know why. Why would they let her come back?
Interesting.
Thank you.
So obviously this was a day before.
Any other questions?
Same day, I don't know.
Yes, sir.
It's all over the place.
Reference two separate people that had use of force complaints that were never officially filed. Were those?
I think they were filed. They had no determination. Is what we've been told.
But they were filed. And just, I guess my question, were both of those people saying the county specifically, or were those at previous law enforcement jobs?
We think it was a previous law enforcement job. One of them was an African American citizen. We don't know the other one, but we know that the allegations is that they reported them. They have contacted our office. One of them did tell us he was a black man and told us it's the same guy, and that he they end up charging him and stuff, and he thinks they did that intentionally. And so apparently it's in his record that there were allegations made, but unsubstantiated. So
this goes back to the commentary I brought you earlier. There are two allegations against Sean Grayson of, number one, inappropriate behavior with a woman, I guess during custody or whatever was going on. I don't really know. And then she had a boyfriend who was in custody, and he's also saying Grayson abuses power, which that don't make no sense, because how could he be in the jail when he's a cop? He shouldn't even have no access to you abusing you in the jail. So I don't really know what all this is about. But now we hear that one of them is African American. The guy's African American. Is this a racial issue? Because at first some people say, no, I don't think it's racist. I just think the guy, short temper, had a bad attitude, which we saw that play out after he shot her. His attitude is callous. It just, as I say, it's one thing after the other, just makes it worse. It just gets worse by the minute. The audio playing out on the camera. Then you got to address that. Why didn't you have your camera on? Is this one of your problems from the past? You're not following protocol. I think they need to only warn you once. You don't have your body camera on. I'm going to warn you once. You don't have it on again, your ass is not working the street. We're going to put you at a desk, and then we're going to follow from there. See, there has to be some reprimand for behavior. You can't just keep letting stuff add up. Because what starts adding up becomes years. And the person is still walking around with a badge and a gun. That's where we have the problem. This happens every time something terrible happens with a civilian. Somebody starts digging in their files and you start seeing all these weird ass stories and allegations and drug use, abuse, and alcohol, and appropriate behavior with women, men, and stealing. And it goes on and on. If you stop the shit as soon as you hear it, you don't have to worry about being sued. You don't have to even worry about nothing. Just handle the damn problem. So I tried to weigh everything out equally from what I'm hearing. I like verification of stuff. I don't like to hear he said, she said. I want to see a file, a piece of paper, something to verify everything about everybody. So now we get more information. His past, allegations about those people, allegedly black, one or two, whatever. So now somebody can throw the race card in there now. You can throw the race card in there now. Because now this is another incident of some people bringing forward charges or allegations against him, and they're African American. At least one of them, the male was. Now we also know the lady had mental problems. So now you got to ask yourself what was really going on with her earlier in the day, acting out. Could it be, and I have said this before, some people don't want to hear it, that's fine. When she was talking about rebuking him at the sink, could it be she was having an episode then standing there with the hot water? Because what I found interesting too, I didn't see any food or anything on the stove or nearby, but the water was on high. Because I remember seeing the flames and I thought, man, it was awfully high, her boiling the water. So what was she actually boiling? Because I'm curious. Just water? What was it? Where was the food? That was strange to me as well. I looked at everything. I also find it strange she didn't put the pot in the sink. Because that would have been the first natural thing to do, is put it in the sink. I heard the water running. I remember hearing the water running after she was shot. And at first it was strange to me while all that was going on. Afterwards, she's already on the ground. I kept saying, why do I hear water running? So I kept saying, why is the water running? So then somebody else in a commentary said, oh, I think she was trying to cool the water down in the pot. So that don't make sense either, because it's like, well, the pot never made it in the sink. Why would I turn the water on and not put it in the sink? Because at this time, I guess they're talking about the water, the heat, and he's like, yeah, I'm stepping back from the flame or the water heat. And she's like, oh, you're afraid of that, whatever. And he's like, yeah. And then that's when she says, I rebuke you 2 times. That's when she should have just put it down in there. I found the comment strange. Now, some people say, well, it's because she got a bad vibe about them being cops, or if you believe that they were there earlier. I don't know. See, I can't speak for her because she's dead. She's not here to tell us what she was thinking. She can't tell us what she was thinking at that time. And I'm not even here to even profess at this point what she was thinking, because now we know she's mentally ill. She could have been saying, her mind was telling her anything to say, because she's schizophrenic. So we don't know what could have been said. And then I re-listened to the video again. I could hear it when she was sitting on the couch. She really didn't want to tell him her name, because it took her a while to tell the name. And then she had made a comment. She mumbled something like, because they asked her name and asked about the ID. Well, some cops do that. They will ask you for identification, even if you're calling, but that is their right to ask you. Can we have your name? So that makes me wonder if they are even the same people that were even there earlier. Because why would I need her ID if I've already talked to her earlier? See, this is why I always tell people you have to listen. Because a lot of people don't like to listen to stuff. They like to just jump the gun on stuff. I don't assume shit. I like to re-listen. Then I like to hear from other people. See, hearing from the kid now gives me more information. She was ill. And that don't make no sense that they were there earlier. If that's true, they didn't need her ID. If I just was here earlier, why do I need to go in to further talk about the truck and further talk about the ID? No, that don't make no sense. So we got to ask that question. Are they the same officers that were there earlier, because I don't need your ID if I've already talked to you. That doesn't make any sense. And that also goes to what I just said about him radioing it in, saying, hey, I just need to ask you a question. Is this a 1096? If he's dealt with her already, he already knows she's a 1096. So that don't make no sense. I don't understand. I don't understand nothing I'm hearing here. This is all over the place. This commentary here. Yeah, see, Flora, that's what I'm trying to say. That's why I keep telling people, if you're really paying attention, you can see that something was wrong with her before even finding out she had a mental issue. I'm just good at reading people. That's why I said everybody don't have a discerning spirit. I'm just looking at a video play out. I already knew what time of day it was when they got on the porch. Whether she had died or not died. I, Queen, knew what time of day it was. Because I'm listening to how she's talking and she was going in circles. So I knew then this is not good. It's the first thing I said. Even though I knew she was already dead from, the news reports. But just listening to them talk, I knew, hey, the vibe is off. The vibe was off between everybody. Everybody. And if you listen carefully when she sits down, she didn't want to give her name. She didn't want to even go look for that ID. You have to replay it. Because she grunts. Like, ugh. And he's saying, I'll get out of your hair. Just show me the ID. So they really didn't want to be there. They're cops. They're telling what the hell they had going on. Their own attitudes. So that's why I said this doesn't make any sense. And I'm hearing this from the son. Oh, I think that's the same guys. So it's like, well, if you've been there already, you don't need her ID. That should have been said on the porch. Well, we were here earlier. See, you didn't hear them say that. And if he has a nasty attitude, because some of you believe he has a nasty attitude, which we saw that after he shot her. Oh, I can see him saying that to her on the porch. Look, lady, we've already been here. We've already been around the clock with you on this. Or you left and we were here. See, you didn't hear that. So if we got us a smart ass cop, oh, you best believe I could see him saying that to her. Man, we were here earlier, but you were gone somewhere and we were banging, knocking, whatever the situation is, and nobody came to the door. You never heard that in his conversation on the porch. You never hear him saying that to himself. Cops talk to themselves when they're walking and talking and stuff. Don't you think he would say that? We were just here earlier. What's going on now? Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, the EMS lady walked in and she says it on the camera. So that's why I'm telling you, you have to listen. Go back and re-listen. All this is not adding up. Whether you believe whatever you want to believe. I'm not here to argue. Nothing. I'm just speaking what's been said by these people. Something is still off. Because she says it on the camera while the girl's laying on the floor. Oh, we were here earlier. So that means it was more than just the cops there. The EMT was there. But you never hear that lady say to the cop, oh, yeah, you were here with us earlier. What happened? Stay woke. So if they were there earlier, they never made contact with her because the son just said it. She was driving her car. But some will still say, well, even if they showed up and they didn't make contact with her, they had to have known why they were there. That she's having some type of mental episode, but they didn't have direct contact with her. So what is the truth? Did they or did they not? Are these the same guys that were there earlier? because the son says he showed up to explain what was going on with the mother, which that was a good thing for him to do, was to show up to let these people know his mother was having something. Gigi says the math ain't mathing. No, it's not. This is why I don't like jumping the gun. I own the fact that what happened in that house was atrocious. It was quick. It was too quick. But I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't think it would have bettered even with a taser. I still think we'd be talking about a real bad situation had they used a taser. I'm just going to keep it real. Because if you use a taser, it would have been just as fucked up as the gun. Because a taser can't touch water. Stay woke. You know, electricity and water, you're not talking about electrocution. So that would, the taser wouldn't have been no better. That's why I always tell people, nobody listens. Nobody pays attention to the information. It would have still been a problem if they had used a taser. Because she's near water. She's near steam. You don't take electricity to water. That's just something you think of at the time. You say, oh, well, why didn't they pull the taser out? And then I thought about that and I said, wait. That wouldn't be any better. She'd have been electrocuted. All hell would have still broke loose. You still would have been talking about a person possibly dying. This is just fucked up. I think what it should have done was just, ma'am, put the pot down. But what I'm trying to explain to people is if she's having a mental episode, if let's just say she did something to that car out there, you really can't say what she was getting ready to do with that water. Some people don't want to hear that, but there's a reason she was boiling that water and boiling it on high. And somebody in the chat said, could it have been for the prowler? Exactly. That's what I'm trying to make people understand. You don't know what she was thinking. She's ill. She's mentally ill. You don't know what her mind was telling her before they came to the door. She was cussing before she even got to the door. That's why they were saying, well, what's taking you so long to open the door? Which I still right now think that's strange. I'm calling the police. I'm scared. Why am I not answering the door? Because that's the point. You don't know what her mind was telling her. Right, exactly, Gigi. A metal pot at that. That's what I'm saying. This was a recipe for disaster for the obvious reasons. She was ill. I don't think it probably would have played out great, period. That's my assertion at the moment. Because the gun is forceful. The taser would have caused an explosion, electrocution. She's holding water, exactly, a metal pot. She's got water running. Hell no, can't hit her with a taser. That wasn't going to work either. And then we don't know what she's thinking about the cops. Because people are, going on and on about the rebuking and Jesus and all that. You can scratch all that. She's ill. Her mind could have been telling her anything. Hey, they're here to hurt you. Hey, they're here to harm you. Hey, they're Martians. I mean, I don't know. For all we know, her mind could have been telling her, oh, they're the prowlers. Pretending to be cops. See, you don't know. You have no idea what she was thinking. That's why I said when he was seeing her with that pot, I'm not saying, this man is not flawed, issues. We know all that now. But as that guy on Court TV said, you also have to put yourself in his shoes to think. What is he thinking about her? Because I still feel like he saw something about that pot was bothering him. Now, another cop could have not thought another thing about it. Another cop could have said, oh, I wouldn't have got offended because she said rebuke me. I ain't worried about that. But he saw something. Doesn't mean it was right. What he thought or wrong. See, everything's about your perception. I think he thought something bad with her in the pot. Because the part that don't make sense to me is why I don't put the pot down in the sink. I would have put the pot down. Because what's the purpose in turning the water on, but the pot is still sitting up on the sink? That was weird to me. All this is bizarre. Well, Gigi, we don't know if they're the ones that were out there. We just know the son says he thinks they're the same ones. So we need clarification. Are they the same officers? That needs to be told. So we'll wait to see if they will verify that these are the same two cops. So then we got to ask, what's the timeline? Because when this took place, I think the initial call was at 12:43 a.m. Or they got out there at 12:43, one or two. So we need to know, are these the same cops? I'd like to know that. Exactly. Everything about the story starts at the beginning. Oh, Gigi said he could have thought it was acid. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And one of the articles said an unknown substance was in the pot. So I said to myself, well, wait a minute. Why would they write that? Unknown. So was it water or it wasn't water? So that's what people need to now say to themselves. Yes, force was used. He didn't have to shoot her 3 times. Didn't have to pull out the gun readily. But what was in the pot? How long had the pot been boiling? Because I told you, I watch everything. And that bothered me when I rewatched the video and I saw the flames. They were high. And the first thing I said was, why is the flame so damn high on this pot? And then she's holding the pot at the sink, but don't put the pot in the sink. And the water's running. See, I wasn't even paying attention that the water was running until after she had already been shot. And I kept saying, why is that water running? So then some said, no, Queen, you need to rewatch this video. Start back at the beginning. So that's what I did. I went back in and I said, the pot is too hot. It took her too long to come to the door. Now we got the pot on the sink. And they're talking back and forth. And then that's when she starts talking about the rebuking. Then he gets offended, draws the gun after saying, you better not, blah, blah, blah. And my spirit's just still telling me something is crazy. Something's amiss with this pot. Why not put the pot in the sink? And that's what a lot of people don't want to focus on. It's the pot left the stove to the sink to the floor, near to the floor. Why would I take the pot to the floor? I have no reason to take the pot to the floor. The pot should have been in the sink. The pot should have never left the sink. Because that would have been the first thing I'd have thought once he got offended by what I said. You better not, blah, blah, blah. I would have said, okay. So I would have put the pot in the sink. Because it is hot. She's holding it with pot holders. But she didn't take it. She didn't put it in the sink. So that's why I'm wondering if that's why he shot her. Because the pot never made it to the sink. So it's all this is so bizarre to me. Just all of it's just so damn bizarre. But like I said, you really can't even try to put it together in your head because you're talking about a person that's mentally ill. So you don't even know what the hell she was thinking at the time, boiling the pot, how long it was on the stove. You know that it was boiling before they got in there because all this time that they're walking around and banging on the door, she's in there. You don't know how long what she was really doing. She's talking to them through the door. She was cursing. She did say fucking something. And they were like, open the door. So, they probably all perturbed at this time. And she lets them know, she was getting dressed. She was scared. He's letting them know we're not here to hurt you. So, as I said, all of it was off. The whole interaction. But now we know she's mentally ill. So ain't no telling what that lady was thinking inside of her house. For all I know, when they were banging on the door, she thought that was the prowler. You can't say because she wasn't mentally stable.
Continue to try to get to the crux of that. The other individual called off said that, they made a allegation, but nothing happened. And they didn't want to go further. They just prayed for the family and said,
Sorry about that. I don't know why this keeps jumping off.
we had a run-in with him too.
So these were proactive calls from the people to non-official. Okay.
Yeah, proactive calls.
What has DOJ told you? You told us the other day that they don't do investigation. They say we're monitoring, assessing, and following the criminal case.
Right. And then subsequent to that, we have been told to try to set a formal inquiry about these other allegations so they can look at who those citizens were and if there was a common connection of the excessive force and on who did he inflict the excessive force allegedly on.
Okay, so you're familiar with this process.
Yeah.
They haven't said an investigation, but they are assessing what you're.
Right. So that apparently they've opened a file and they have come short of calling it an investigation. And they told us they would notify us that they're trying to get information just like we're trying to get information, and that they're working with the local officials to get information.
There's obviously plenty of questions about the incident with police arriving to her home earlier in the day. All of that, who was at the house after you decide, if there were multiple visits to her home in that day, what does that tell you about the way that she was received when those deputies showed up at the scene later, and the temperament and the way she was treated when they got to them?
Well, it's going to be interesting, and I'm sure we can find out who went on the call earlier. Was it the same officers or not? And then did they have body camera video then?
Exactly.
And so forth, and can we find that out? We're just trying to get to the truth of what happened, man, because what happened on that video was not right. It was senseless, and it was unjustified. And so we want to know everything that led up to her being shot in the face while she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus."
I guess just to go off that, there were already critiques of the way they were handling, treating her, talking to her at the home before any of this happened. The way she was going through something, and they were short. They were talking slowly to her. I guess just if there was already that history of knowing she had that. Does that just expound on the problems for you?
Exactly. If you knew it was a person dealing with mental issues, then why in the world would you ever feel the need to do that to her? She has no history. She never been arrested. The autopsy, there were no drugs in her system other than medication that we know about. She was just a mother trying to be a mother to her children. She did the right thing. She had them go live with their fathers and so forth while she was trying to get mental health. She was trying to do everything right. It was, these officers, namely, Grayson, who didn't respect her enough to try to say she's.
So let's interject here. So we now know that she has had a mental illness, whatever it was. It affected her also rearing her children. So that's also pivotal. So what was going on in the house for somebody to say these children need to be removed and out of her care? Did the children decide they wanted to leave, or did the mother say, "I can't have you here because there's something wrong with me"? Or what really happened in the house? I'm curious to that as well, because that is also a part of the story. What happened in her household? We also hear, allegedly cops were there earlier. Son says, I don't say allegedly, but the son says he talked to some people. The mother had already left in her car to go get herself some mental health. What was going on with the mother that fateful day that went into the early morning wee hours? What was going on with her? What type of episode was she having? Was she hearing voices? What was going on? So she drove herself. So once again, the truck that's outside with the broken windows, was that the same car she drove herself to the hospitals? EMTs have let it be known during that video. Oh, we were here earlier. So we got the same EMTs there, but were the same cops there? Because we don't even know the time that this earlier episode took place. So was it the same cops? Very curious. We hear that she did not have a criminal record, had not been arrested, okay? Scratch that off the list. So now you got to ask the ultimate question. How many times had police, EMTs, fire hall, whomever, made contact to her house for any type of disturbances and or episodes? Has she ever been committed before to a hospital? Has she ever been on hold at a hospital for her mental illness? You know, sometimes they'll hold you 2 days, 3 days. Has she ever been held in the hospital for mental episodes? Did she ever act out in the house? Did she ever have problems with neighbors? Everyone says she's sweet, she's nice, she's lovable, but did she ever have any episodes to where she would walk out, start, talking to herself or accusing somebody of messing with a flower or, who? I don't know, just asking. Any other type of situations outside the house? Any episodes in the store, shopping? Curious. What do we have here? How many times have they been to her home? It's very bizarre. And then you have to ask yourself, why did she drive herself to the hospital? Did they take too long not to come? Are we talking about a situation where they had been to her house multiple times and they didn't want to come? Nobody wanted to show up. It was a lag in response. So she decided, okay, I'm just going to drive myself to the hospital.
Having mental issues, and we need to try to be compassionate, not heavy-handed.
It was reported with the UK Police Department in their records that showed misconduct, serious offense. We know Fort Wayne County and St. Louis County, they also read misconduct, serious offense going through this application.
I would assume so if they were being prudent. You don't just hire somebody willy-nilly and you're going to give them a gun and a badge and say you get to go interact with the public. That's what Mr. Wilborn keeps saying.
Said willy-nilly. Lord have mercy. Oh my gosh, I'm not trying to laugh on the way he said that. Willy-nilly, just give them a gun and a badge. Well, that's what they did. They gave anybody a gun and a badge.
Why did he even have a job as a sheriff's deputy after those red flags?
And a question that I also have is, these police departments or sheriff departments, will there be documents that you requested her to be seen where they tracked, yes, we went to Sonia Massie's house at this time, like before that July 6th encounter early in the morning?
We don't know, but we believe that when they go to somebody's house, there should be some report of it. And so that's why we're hoping, as I told Malachi, we will know were these the same officers who came to the house or not when he got there trying to check on his mother. Yes, sir.
Okay, Akira, why did the officer retreat outside? Well, let's be truthful. That probably wouldn't have been an appropriate protocol to go outside because you're there to assess the situation with the person, whatever it may be. So I don't think that would have went over well with their superiors. They went outside because that's what, think about what a sergeant would say to you. Well, why did you go outside? Because she had a pot. They're going to say what everybody else keeps saying. Well, you were feet away. The partition's in front of you. You should have just told her to put the pot down, without drawing the guns. Put the pot down, ma'am. I don't know what your rebuking is all about, but put the pot down. That's what should have been said. But we don't know how that would have turned out either because you can't go back. So what they should have just told her was put the pot down. They can't go back outside because that doesn't make no sense to say go outside because somebody got a hot pot. It's not like she had a grenade or a bomb. Yeah, I can see running out then. She don't have a grenade. She don't have a bomb. So you are separated several feet from her by the partition wall, the countertop. So the best thing would have been just to say, ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. When she mentioned the rebuking, because I believe that's exactly what set him off. Whatever it was about that set him off. You should have just said, I don't know what you're talking about. Rebuking me. You have no reason to rebuke me. We're here to ask you for your ID. So just put the pot down and put the pot down and come back over here and get the ID. That's all. All that could have went. But see, we don't even know if that would have, how that would have turned out. We don't know because it didn't happen. So that's why I said you could go round and round and round about what somebody should have done. He should have did this, should have done this. If you're dealing with somebody mentally ill, we don't know how this would have ended, even with just saying, put the pot down. Not now that we know that she's mentally ill. Because the statement is odd. To some people, they don't find it odd. I found it odd when I first listened. Because I didn't understand the statement myself. But I didn't know she had a mental illness either. Because I said to myself, why is she saying that? I just thought it was strange.
And you were a family member.
This is just a crazy situation here.
Or a family member talk about what they were trying to do specifically to get Miss Massey mental health aid and the St. Louis situation with her being down there. When is the time frame for that statement?
And Mr. Wilbur and Brianna are here. I think they were the ones who were trying to help her with that. Her sister Brianna and you. Okay. Do you know how long she was supposed to stay in St. Louis?
It was supposed to be 30 days, but she got out after 2.
30 days, but they released after 2. That's what she said.
Was that a voluntary?
Yeah, it was
Voluntary. They made it, and Malachi talked to Mr. Jones and I. The reason his sister and he were not staying at his mother's house anymore was because she was going to be at the mental health facility in St. Louis. And yes.
You know the name of the facility is Grand Gary or something?
Wow.
No, man, we're good. Yes, sir. Yes.
Very interesting.
He said he doesn't know. Yes, ma'am.
Woo, sorry about that. Had a brief intermission. So she's supposed to went to the hospital.
Any other questions? It underscores that mental health is real, and we need to understand that people who are trying to get help need us to be considerate of their efforts to try to better themselves. And apparently, she was trying, y'all. She was trying. And so we will continue to try for Sonia Massie. We will continue to fight for her to get justice, full justice. And we keep saying that word, full justice, because her son and her daughter and their family deserve full justice. We will keep you updated. We know that on Sunday, there's been a national call for Sonia Massie in over 25 cities. Tamika Mallory and Until Freedom, a civic engagement organization, has set it up, and there have been rallies in New York, Washington, D.C., St. Louis, Los Angeles, all around the country for Sonia Massie. We know that Reverend Al Sharpton and clergy are in Chicago on Tuesday at 6 p.m. having a rally for justice for Sonia Massie. And we know that congressional members as well as the vice president are constantly
praying for the family and also seeking to talk with her family in the days to come. We've talked to about 3 congressional members so far, and I know Vice President Harris is trying to set up a time to talk with the family of Sonia Massie.
What's that agency that's putting these rallies together?
It's a couple of them. It's National Action Network, Until Freedom, National Action Network, the NAACP, all the civil rights organizations. Say Her Name, based out of Los Angeles, black women who have been killed by police violence, like Sandra Bland, like Atiana Jefferson, like Pamela Turner, like Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on and on. Yes, they are. Okay, thank you.
All right, about that's Mr. Ben Crump and the family. And they had reporters there to ask questions. So we learned a little bit more than we've heard, that this lady, Miss Massey, had mental issues. Her children went to live with their fathers. The son went to his father. The daughter went to her father. We also hear police were at her house either the same day or day before. We also hear the son was there, but officers didn't make contact, I think, that same day. So what we have to find out now, the 2 officers that were there during this shooting, were they there earlier? Because if they were, then they should have known she was a 1096. Okay? We also learned in the video, if you watched the video, the EMTs said that they had been there before, earlier that day. How many times had EMTs, fire department, or police, all of the above, been to her house? We also hear she didn't have a criminal record. We also hear that she was supposed to go to St. Louis to stay in the hospital for 30 days, but she was released after 2. So why did you all release her after 2 days? Did you look at her and make an assessment? Well, we think she can make it on her own. She can sustain herself. Obviously, she thought something was going on with her mentally, so she was checking herself in. We hear that was voluntary on her part. She volunteered herself to go. So she wasn't ordered by the court or ordered by a physician to go be committed. So all those things are very important. But we learned this about mental illness. There's nowhere to house but something was going on for her to want to volunteer herself. There was something wrong with her to want to call them earlier that day and then drive herself to the hospital. That's just very poignant information. And then we have the final incident of them showing up and then she's unalived. So this is just some bizarre information, because I'd like to know what was really going on with her earlier that day, the day before. So now we're going step. Day 1, day 2, something was going on with her. So possibly she didn't need to be on her own. That's why I said, with everything that's coming out now, it's obvious. Vibe was off day 1 when they went to the house that night. God probably was off the day before. Who's to say? We got to wait to see who those officers were. Did they know that she was a 1096? But they just didn't mention it during the video. Don't know. But what was going on with her? What was her diagnosis? Should she have been left alone? Got to ask that question too, because we don't really know if she was going to be a harm to herself or harm to her children. And if it was to the point that her children were removed, that should tell you something right there. The situation was dire even without her being murdered. You just don't remove children from a house. Even though these children are older, they're not babies. Thank God they're not small children. But they're older children. You got to now ask yourself, what was really going on in her house for these children to have to be removed? And somebody say, well, that's no big deal. That ain't got nothing to do with it. Well, it does have something to do with it, because that's the reason why they ended up going to her house. Everything has something to do with everything. You can't take what you want from the story and just soup up what you want from the story. She had issues, And I question everything about a story. Not just she was murdered. Because everything's a stair step. And that's one thing people don't like to own. Is that you got to have a start. And the start is that she was ill. The start is she had children who were removed from her care, either voluntarily, either she said they had to go, or they decided to go on their own. It's still bad that these kids are not with their mother. They're checking up on her, calling. Naturally, they love their mother. So you still got to say, well, what was going on with the mother and the kids? Was she acting out? Was she calling them by different names? Did she not recognize her children? Because you got to think, if she's schizophrenic, those kids may not even been recognizable to her. She might even know that they're her children. So you got to weigh all of that. That's why I said you got to know everything that was going on with her, because maybe when the police went to her house, you could tell she was disoriented. This cop saw something. And some will argue that, well, he still didn't have no business shooting her. Well, I think we know that already. The guns didn't have to be drawn. But who's to say? In her mind, these cops weren't cops. Her mind was telling her, hey, these ain't police officers. See, we don't know. We just know what we've seen from the video, and everybody's going to have his or her perception, of what they saw in the video. Why wasn't any of those adult members with her, or why not at her parents' home? She needed help. Well, see, that's the thing I have explained recently. When it comes to mental illness in adults, number one, you cannot make them take their meds. You cannot make them do anything. You have to get an overseer to get involved. You either have to go to the courts to say they're incompetent to live alone, or they can't stay with me. They need to be in a facility. They need to be in a group home. You have to involve legal help when you want to start getting people removed from your home or their own home. That's why I said it's obvious there was more going on. And it's obvious now her children weren't with her. Her children had been removed weeks before. So obviously she had gotten worse. It's obvious. She was worse when they were there, which was weeks before. She was worse when these law enforcement got to her home. And why they didn't stay, I think the reason why she didn't stay with the parents or the mother or whomever, they said in this press conference she was supposed to get checked in. So that's why she didn't stay at the mother's house. She needed help. Obviously, she wanted help. She was going to check herself in on her own. So it's not like she was mandated, by the courts to go get help. She was going to do this on her own. But what can you do? This is why we have a lot of problems out here to where people get hurt. She's not the first person mentally ill to get hurt by police, by outsiders. Because let's flip the role. Let's say he wasn't a cop. Let's say she was out in the street. Imagine the worst case scenario in the street. Because in the street, people don't know that you're mentally ill. So let's just say you start talking out of turn. You start saying weird conversations and the person's looking at you like, rebuke me for what? I ain't done nothing to you. The hell you talking about? Now they're arguing. See, this is why I keep trying to tell everybody. Everything's about a response. Because you got to use common sense. She ain't going to just sit in her house 24/7. She has to go outside. She has to go to the store. Go somewhere. If she's ill, she's driving a whole fucking car. That's why I always tell people, you got to pay attention to what's been told to you. Now you know she was mentally ill. Just imagine this person out here hearing voices. God knows what she's thinking. And she's behind the wheel of a whole damn automobile. She's getting out of her car, going into the gas station, store. You looking at her a certain type of way, or she's looking at you, or she think you're looking at her, or she think you said something out of the way to her. It could go any kind of way, just like what happened in that house. And then somebody takes it the same way, misconstrue what she's saying, and now you got an all-out brawl, altercation, and they don't know she's mentally ill. Because you see this a lot with people mentally ill. They say stuff that don't make no sense, or they say stuff that comes across as crass. And so I'm saying she could have easily gotten hurt as well out in public because she's ill. And you don't know what her mind is telling her. Mind could be telling her, oh, yeah, that's a Martian, that's Mickey Mouse, that's whatever. And then she starts saying stuff, and then somebody's like, what are you talking about? Oh, I'm rebuking you. Excuse me? You're rebuking me? What the hell you mean? See where I'm going? Now they done got crunk. Now she's arguing with a complete stranger, but the stranger don't know she's mentally ill. That's the only point I'm trying to make. That her behavior was probably, her mental illness was getting worse. And that's a dangerous thing. Because a lot of people are probably going to say, what? You want to argue that? It's nothing to argue about. Because once her kids were removed, that should tell you something right there. Her situation was dire. And she saw that something was wrong with her. So she went to try to get help. But she can't make the hospital keep her. Can't make the hospital keep you. That's why I keep trying to tell people about when you're an adult. You don't have reins over somebody else. You have to go through a legal channel to get a person committed, to get them put in a facility, a group home. You got to go the legal way. You can't force a person to go somewhere. You can't force them to take their meds. This is another reason we have a lot of mental people acting out. They don't take their meds because they don't want to. So now we got to ask that question. Was she on medicine? Was she taking her medicine the way she was supposed to? And I just don't think, she should even been on her own or with a car. And one thing about schizophrenia, if that's indeed what she has, a lot of times schizophrenia is diagnosed very late in life. I think of a relative that once had it. And I didn't hear about it until she was like way older. She's probably 60. So found out she had schizophrenia. And she was hearing stuff similar to this. Matter of fact, I'll just throw this out here briefly. Me and some people were sitting outside one night, and she came around the corner. She was living in an apartment complex near, where I was. Oh no, she had moved to another place. Excuse me. She had been driving her car. This is real similar now. Now, jog my memory back. But she used to live at the apartment where I used to live. She pulled her car up and got out. And she said to one of my other relatives, she said, hey, I need you to come up here to my apartment. And he said, well, what's wrong, Auntie? What's the matter? And she said, there's somebody up there. There's this guy up there. He keeps banging on my door. So he's like, huh? So he don't know what's going on with her, but I did. I had just been recently told that she was having some problems, that she was mentally ill. She had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. So I couldn't tell him in front of her that there's nobody up there banging on her door. So he looks at me and he's shrugging his shoulders like, what's going on? And I couldn't say it because I didn't want to embarrass her. So I told him to come over and I whispered and said, there's nobody there. She's been diagnosed, schizophrenic. So he said, oh, okay. So I told her, hey, you need to go home, okay, and lock the door. And so she was like, well, I don't want to go back home because there's somebody up there. So I said, well, let's go up to your sister's house. And this was, my aunt. I said, well, let's go up to your sister's house. I'll take you up to your sister's house and we can figure things out from there. So we make our way up to my aunt's house and we go in. And I'm telling you, this woman, she's dead now. Both are dead. If you had heard the way my aunt talked to her, hell, you would think she was just as cruel as this Mr. Sean Grayson. My aunt popped off. She was like, I'm sick of this, sick of these problems and going back and forth with you, blah, 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 blah. There's nobody up there. There's no prowler, blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of stunned myself, like, wow, I can't believe she's talking to her like this. But see, I don't know how many times maybe she's been up there fooling with her and this imaginary prowler. So I'm just sitting there listening, getting an earful, kind of like, damn, this is deep. So she's sitting there looking crazy and, not crazy like that, but, like got this deer in headlights look. It was just an odd exchange. My first time really just sitting in a room with a person I've known for a long time, has been diagnosed as a schizophrenic. And then my aunt, who obviously is just starting to deal with her schizophrenia, she's fed up and pissed off. And her behavior, somebody would say, was mean, because somebody would have said, well, okay, you know what's going on with her. Why are you getting angry? Because she's ill. You know, maybe they tried to get her somewhere too. Maybe they tried to put her somewhere. Maybe they tried to get somebody to get involved to take her. I don't know, because I never asked, all those personal things. But the exchange was heated. But what was sad is the obvious. Joanne was sick, very sick, and she needed help. So she eventually got back up there, to her house, and guess locked the door. But it was sad watching it unfold, because I'm looking at this person who I've known, half of my life, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, how did it come to this? This lady is schizophrenic and she's hearing voices and stuff. So it's very similar to what we're talking about here. Here you have a schizophrenic person who is operating a house on their own when they shouldn't be alone. Number two, they have ventured out into the public, which they shouldn't be doing, in the dark. Number three, they're operating a vehicle. This is dangerous. This is dangerous. So think about all of what I've said during this live stream, plus this story I'm sharing with you, why a schizophrenic person don't need to be unattended. And the sick part of the story is that in both cases, these are two women who were living on their own. One was 35, one was, probably near 60 years of age or so. So you're talking about a serious situation where they're mentally ill, they're alone, they're hearing voices, and they also have access to a car. That is a recipe for disaster. That's why I made the comment earlier. People will say, well, maybe he should have used a taser. I don't think the taser would have been sufficient either, due to the fact she's holding water, hot water, steam. That would have been a recipe for disaster, because she would have got electrocuted more than likely. That wasn't going to work. That wasn't going to work either. And you can't make an adult person do what you think they should do. You can't make them take meds. You can't make them go to the hospital. She really shouldn't have been living on her own. But the flip side is that there are many people who are mentally ill, and I can attest to this personally. People I see all the time. They are in a whole damn building with access to a door and a key, and they are mentally ill, and they have no business with an apartment or a house. So something needs to change as far as housing mentally ill people, because you can have different types of mental disorders or handicap situations. So there's a different level of mental illness. I think when a person starts hearing voices, that is, he or she should not have their own place. That's my personal opinion. They should not have their own place, and they should not have access to a car, because you don't know what a voice will tell them. So now, I don't know if this will help anybody just listening to this live stream. Who's to say that whether they had been there before or not, don't know. He saw something in her that troubled him with the pot of hot water. Not to say he should have shot her, but just saying he felt something in the moment. Because you have to now weigh in. If her own children were removed from her house, then she had a really serious problem. Because her children are almost grown. They're not, 5 and 6 years old. You're talking about teenagers. So what was so terrible in her home that those children removed themselves? So that needs to be weighed as well. That maybe it had progressed and it is way worse than what is really being said. Now, some will say, well, I didn't see that in the video. You didn't have to see it in the video. You didn't have to see it in the video. Could they have gotten a vibe from her? But you couldn't see it watching. You're just saying, well, they don't got the temperament. They were agitated. And I'm sure they were agitated. I think they were. I think they were agitated from the moment they got there because it took her too long to come to the door. They don't know what's going on with that truck out there with the broke out window. If that's all true, now we're inside looking for IDs, whatever. You're not getting their name. You're not getting the ID. You're shuffling through paper. So it was going south really quick. It was going south. As I said, there was no reason to shoot her 3 times. That was unnecessary. Just totally unnecessary. And I'm sure he's sitting up in that jail wishing he could go back. And does he have any remorse? I've asked you that question. Got shorts up about that. Does he have any remorse for shooting her? Does he wish he could go back, Mr. Grayson? But you can't go back now. Can't go back and relive what happened. I don't really know what would have been the remedy for this situation, quite frankly. Even if no guns were drawn, I don't know. Because when you're sitting here talking about somebody that's mentally ill, you don't know what their mind is telling them. It's just, who's to say that these people in her mind could have been, the enemy to her? It's just a really bad story. Well, I thought he was triggered. Well, I'm just saying, for all I know, but you're still talking about 2 guys who were there. Some people think he should be arrested. He pulled a gun too. So it wasn't just one person pulling a gun. You got two. You got 2 who pulled the gun, but only one took the shots. So still it's a bad situation. We got 2 who drew the gun. And as I said, everybody's got their opinion about what happened. But as I played you content from the court TV, that guy, that analyst, he made a good point, and some people don't want to, assess what he said. He said, I got to think like how he was thinking. He says, not the shooting part, but what she said. Maybe he took that as she's going to do something with the water. I don't know if she's going to do anything. So let me, tell her, hey, put the pot down. And then she did. And then a lot of people can say, well, I didn't see where she threw the water. But if you look at the other dash cam, body cam, it shows that, she did throw the water. Something in his head made him think that she was going to do something with the pot. That's the only thing I can come up with. It's why he pulled the gun. He thought she's going to do something with this pot. Okay, now she's talking about rebuking me. Something is off with this lady. So I'm going to tell her, put it down. And then she, they go back and forth with that. But as many are saying, when you went closer with the gun, well, she's now fearful. So hell yeah, she went on and threw the damn pot of water. And at this point, she was down and then she raised back up. Because you hear Ben saying that. She raised up, but he don't say she came back up with the water, but she did. Because you can see it in the still frame. She did come back up with the water. That's why I said to everybody, if you pay attention, common sense will tell you the pot didn't just make its way over there by their feet by accident. That pot started at the stove. It then went to the sink. It then went down. And the pot was down before she got shot. Because she's holding it with the pot holders. And I couldn't understand why she just didn't sit it in the sink because she was running the water. That is something I would have done, but that's the point. I'm not her. I would have said, okay, let me put this pot in the sink, run the cold water, turn the cold water off, and put it down. And especially if I've said something that's offended this person, and he's yelling at me now, put the pot down, I definitely would have put that pot in that damn sink. But that's the point. I'm not her. So, I don't know. This is all bizarre. Very, very bizarre. Well, we're going to now hear from CNN, where the son speaks further about his mom. What he wants done to Sean Grayson.
Home
is sparking national outrage this morning. Sonia Massie, a 36-year-old Black woman, was gunned down by a deputy after she called 911 to report a possible prowler at her home. She called for help and ended up dead. She was shot seconds after police had given her permission to remove a pot of boiling water from the stove. The officer then drew his gun, causing her to duck for cover. She was shot 3 times in her own home. Now her family is demanding to know why the deputy who pulled the trigger was hired in the first place. His personnel file revealed a troubling employment history and past DUI charges. I am joined now by Sonia's son, Malachi, and civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is representing the Massey family. Thank you both for coming in this morning. I know, Malachi, that you are heartbroken. Can you tell me first how you found out that your mother had been shot and killed?
So basically, I take my dad to work at like 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So I was taking him to work. I came home, then I was getting back in the bed. And as soon as I had woke up, not even woke up, I'm sorry. As soon as I was finna go back to sleep, I got a call. And it was like a random number. I didn't know who it was, but I answered it. And that's when they said, your mother has been shot. Came out her neck. And it went to her eye, and it came out her neck. And they just was saying somebody. That's all they, I don't know why they kept on saying somebody shot her. And I said, who? And they wouldn't tell me who. I'm like, who? And they just said somebody. And then next thing you know, I get up. I wasn't even thinking. I was like, I got to get to my grandma's house. And then I told my grandma what happened, and she was just in disbelief. Just like me, I didn't want to believe it. And then we didn't find out that it was a police officer until a day after, too. That's the thing. So we were just left clueless, honestly.
What do you think should happen to the officer? I know that you have told me that you have not watched the video, which would be so traumatic for you. So that's a good thing. But what do you think should happen to the officer who took your mother's life?
I think he should be, honestly, he need there's something. There's no way in the world that should have happened to my mother. He should have done anything like that. That shouldn't have went down. There's no way, no how. I feel like he didn't care from the beginning. He didn't care from the beginning because I watched one clip of the first part of it, and he just had no regards for my mother. So we need to have no regards for him. We have him locked down as long as possible. I don't even know.
You watched a little bit of it. I know the officer has been fired and been charged. Can you, Ben, tell me what happens now in this investigation? You're expecting some news today, correct?
Yes, ma'am, Sarah. And Sarah, I'm intentionally wearing pink, but you've been a champion for the battle for breast cancer. Today, the autopsy is being released by the state's attorney, and it shows exactly what Malachi said, that his mother was shot beneath her eye, and the bullet exited the back of her neck under her ear. And what it tells us is that he shot her in a downward trajectory. And, we know that she was stupid and sorry, and he shot anyway. And so it is just tragic. Also, we're talking to the Department of Justice, the Civil Rights Division, because there are other citizens of color who said that this officer engaged in excessive force against them. So it begs the question what Malachi's grandfather said. Why was he even on the sheriff's department in the first place? Why was he hired with all the red flags? That he should not have been a person who could interact with the public with this gun and badge.
Malachi, can I ask you what you thought of the fact on the video it shows that he didn't render aid either and discouraged his fellow officer from rendering aid to your mom as well? What do you make of that?
That when I heard that was like I didn't. That was crazy to me. Like, how are you supposed to be a police officer and you shoot someone? I've seen like videos before of like this happening, and they give them first aid right after it happens. Why? I don't understand why that. I can't believe that. Like, why?
And that's the question, Sarah. It's so inhumane, without remorse. This video reminds people about the video 4 years ago with George Floyd, the lack of humanity, how that galvanized people to take action and go vote. And we think that Sonia Massie's tragic video is going to galvanize people in our community to act, because she needed a helping hand, not a bullet to her face. And for Malachi and his sister Summer, we have to use Sonia Massie's words. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus until we get justice and this discriminatory criminal justice system, full justice for Sonia Massie. We rebuke this system until it actually gets convictions. We can't be satisfied with just charges. We know how that's worked out for Black people in the past.
Malachi, can I ask you about your mom? And just, the public doesn't know her. They only know about her final moments. What can you tell me that sits with you about your mother? We're showing a picture there, I think, of her holding you, which is sweet.
She's I don't know, she's the most loving person. Like she's the person who showed me how to love, Like, wow, just a ball of energy. I said that. I think I said that before, but she is always happy. Only thing I can really remember my mom is that bright smile, honestly. Like her bright smile, that's all I can remember. That's all I wanted from her, too. But she is a help, like she was a helper. She helped everybody. Sure. All of her friends tells me how she helped them. What else?
Do you remember any words of wisdom, Malachi, that she would give to you as a young person, as her child?
Oh, she would always tell me to read my Bible. That's what she would always tell me. Like every day, she would like, "Did you read your Bible?" Like she, very close with God, very very close with God. Like y'all heard her last words.
Malachi.
That's all.
Malachi Massie, thank you so much. What a beautiful sentiment that your mother, was the person who taught you how to love. I appreciate you coming on in this really difficult time. Ben Crump, appreciate you as well. Thank you both for being here this morning with us.
CNN is the source, everybody. Thank you so much. So we have a little more information than what we previously had. Just to recap, anybody coming in late. The mother had mental issues. Her children had been removed out of her care, or they voluntarily left her care. They went each to live with their fathers, 2 children, separate fathers. What was going on in the household? Because as I said, that's a serious situation when 2 children are removed. So it doesn't matter. It does not matter if they were 16 or 15 or they were 2, 3. It's still the same. Something was going on in her life, in her home, her mental state for her children to be removed from her care or voluntarily removed. We learned that she was supposed to go to St. Louis for care for 30 days. She only went 2 days. They sent her back. They released her. Why did they release her? Did they feel like she was able to take care of herself, through meds and or seeing a psychiatrist? I don't know. So what was her assessment? That needs to be known. What was her assessment from the hospital for them to release her after 2 days? I find that very interesting. As many of you know, we don't have enough state hospitals for people, and maybe her mental defect wasn't severe enough for her to be committed to a hospital formally, for an extended period of time or forever. There's some people who are in a state hospital, they're there forever. There's no getting out. I don't know of any state hospitals. We used to have one here in my region, North Shore, many people probably heard of it. Lakeshore, excuse me. It has been disbanded a long, long time ago. And all those people got flooded out to society. So that was a problem, because now you got all these people that were once in a facility. They're out roaming around when they need to be somewhere housed. And as I told you before, we have a lot of people who are on the street homeless that are mentally ill and they need care. They need to be on their meds. But once again, when you're an adult, you cannot make somebody take medicine. They're not children. So then you factor in them getting a place to live. They don't need that either. They need a place to stay, but they don't need to be on their own, because they get mad at the world. They start hearing voices, whatever's going on with them. Next thing you know, they're setting fires. They're coming out the doors with knives, guns, bats, whatever. Then here comes the police. And God forbid the police don't know that they're mentally ill. So now they're confronting these people. They don't know what they're on. They don't know if they're on drugs or they got schizophrenia or some type of mental disorder. And now next thing you know, they're dead. So that's another thing that's a problem. Mentally ill people coming in contact with the police. You have this all the time. Her case is no different. The setup may be a bit different. She didn't have, per se, a weapon like a gun or a bat. But we have heard of many stories of people who drew weapons. They were mentally ill. It wasn't just somebody mad at the world wanting to, go out with a bang from the cops. They were mentally disturbed. But that's the point. Once you put a weapon in your hand, the police doesn't have to care that you're mentally ill. He or she don't have to know that you're mentally ill. You grab a bat or a gun and you decide to go full force running, or you're in a threatening position near a person, they don't have to care or dissect you at that point. You have positioned yourself in a threatful manner. So as I said, each situation is different. But a lot of people are mental and they go get weapons. They may threaten to harm themselves or threaten somebody else. And the police, if he or she has never had contact with him or her in that fashion, they don't know they're mentally ill. So what they're trying to do is put down the threat, take down the threat, not knowing you're mentally ill, or may know, but it don't matter. You have a weapon now. So I can't look at you as just a mentally ill person with a gun or a knife. You're now posing a threat. This is a very diabolical story. We also learned that Mr. Grayson attended court or had a court appointment Thursday. He was denied pretrial release. The judge feels like he is a threat due to what happened in Miss Massey's home. And the fact that, he was an officer, used deadly threat, shot her 3 times. He's a threat to society. That's pretty deep. So he can't even get a bail, bond, nor can he get pretrial release. Just got an update. U.S. wins first gold medal at the 24 Olympics. 4x100 meter freestyle relay team tops rival Australia. Amen. Amen. Some good news. Don't know if many of you are watching the Olympics or not. Some of you are probably watching it right now, because I had posted some one of Beyonce's videos of the Olympics, the contenders for the Olympics, to my community page. Feel free to check that out so you can see the chosen ones that's going to be representing us in the Paris Olympics. That's really all I have. No pretrial release, no bail for Mr. Sean Grayson, former deputy of Sangamon Sheriff's Department. Condolences to the family. Praying for justice, praying that somehow these children can, in time, grapple with what has happened, because, it's fresh, just the 6th of July that this incident took place. So we got to pray for these children, pray for the parents, mother and father, and other extended relatives, pray for the community, and pray for our mentally ill. And as I said, we need more facilities for mentally ill adults, because there are too many people out here that live on their own. And I think that needs to be addressed, is that we have too many mentally ill people on their own, and they don't need to be on their own. Because as I said, this woman here, going out, driving in a car, naturally she's probably hearing voices, prowler, whatever. Police come. She's fearful of them. She's fearful of whoever she thinks out there. And as I said, for all we know, she could be looking at those. She could have been looking at those cops as prowlers in her head. See, that's the whole thing. You don't really know what she was thinking. You just now know that she was mentally ill. So that, this happens every day. People detach from their mind and their mind's telling them all types of things. You know, that's what schizophrenia is. It's a separation of what is real and what is not. And as I said, you have a lot of people out here who have no business living on their own. They don't need to be alone. And this is scary because her kids are now gone. They were gone. She's on her own. She's hearing things. So you have to just imagine what the hell was going on in her life before this incident. It had to be pretty bad for her children to be removed. And then that's even scary because then somebody might say, well, damn, why would the kids leave her? See, it's a lot of questions you can ask with this new information. Why would you want to leave your mother alone and she's sick? You're talking about two children who are almost grown. Stay woke now. Why would you want to leave a mentally ill person alone because of their mental illness? So that would lead me to think it got bad in her house. It got really bad. So I don't know why EMTs were there earlier, why the police, we hear that the police was there earlier or the day before because she called, they took off. So we need to get a timeline of who was there on the 5th, who was there on the 6th. We need to get a timeline of the people. Because you got to remember, it was 12 something in the morning on the 6th. So I'm assuming somebody was there hours before or earlier on the 5th. So how many times had they been to her house? How many times did she call? Did a neighbor or anybody ever call on her? We also hear she didn't have a criminal record. What was going on in her house with her children? Why would somebody think it was okay to leave her alone without some adult supervision? Because the kids were gone weeks before. So that's still a pivotal amount of time, depending on how many weeks we're talking about, of her being alone unattended. She only did 2 days in the hospital. So 2 days out of a couple weeks. So we don't know if it's 14 days that the kids were out of the house or if it was 21 days. Not sure. But as I'm saying, it's still bad. She's left alone when obviously she should not have been left alone because she could have harmed herself. See, that's the point. She could have harmed somebody else because when you're hearing voices, the voices will tell you to do anything. It's not a itemized list of what the voices can tell you to do. They can tell you to do anything, tell you to jump off a bridge. So that's why I'm saying she had no business being by herself. So that was a good point, Kim in the chat. Why is this woman living alone? Because you're betting on, she's going to go to a hospital. She's going to go get some help. But she's only gone for 2 days and they released her. So now we got to ask ourselves, what did they see in her demeanor to only say, well, she's okay. We'll send her home. This lady had no business being unattended at all. And as we talked about the taser situation, I don't even think that would have been a good idea either. Under the circumstances of, her being there with the water, that would have been dangerous with electricity and water. She could have gotten electrocuted. It still would have been a problem. I think they should have just told her to stand down. Whatever he thought she meant by the comment, should have just said, hey, put the pot down. We're here to get your ID. That's all we're here for. We're not here to hurt you. Put the pot down, But we're never going to know because that never happened. Thank you so much for your time. This was a 2-part live. Fabiola Thomas was unalived in Georgia back in 2019 by Antonio Wilson. They met on a date site and he unalived her, broke into her apartment and killed her. And a roommate also was there, obviously, and heard her scream, called 911 after finding her in a bathtub. And that's a bit grainy information as well. Jury deliberated for 30 minutes and found him guilty and gave him a life sentence. Please go back to the beginning of the live to hear that information with the source, 2 sources. And then we have the case of Sonia Massie, unalived by former deputy Sean Grayson. He will not get a bail, no pre-trial release. He will go straight to trial when it's time and stand charged for first-degree murder. He also now has 5 counts against him, 3 pertaining to the murder. He also has a past of alcohol abuse, DUIs, driving on a suspended license, and also, I believe one of the licenses, I think they said it was revoked at one time, but now it's saying suspended. I don't know which is one of the 2. The point is he has a past 6 agencies in 4 years, criminal record before going into the academy, which I find very disturbing because I don't think anybody should be a deputy or a police officer or a state trooper, whichever, with a criminal record of drinking and driving. And then we're going to wait to see if we find out he was still currently battling alcoholism. Because what I always tell people is you go back to the beginning of the story. If you got a charge from 15 and 16, then you obviously like to drink and drive. So if you're drinking and driving in 15, 16, who's to say you weren't driving in the years thereafter when you became a cop? Okay, so we're now at 2024. So who's to say you hadn't been driving in the month of June, the month of July? Drinking and driving. Because old habits die hard. And I think he has a problem with authority, but yet he wants to be in an authoritative situation, predicament. Don't you find that interesting? You join the Army, you get a general discharge, which means he was doing something that wasn't up to par by Army standards. Then you become a cop and you're let go from one of the agencies for not following protocol and rules. So that's two different places where you're not following instructions. And I won't doubt it may be other ones as well. Now, as I said to people before, when I was just gathering all the information, I can see why he wouldn't want to work at the part-time jobs because they're not paying anything. And you need full-time work to sustain yourself. But at some point, he was hired by two other agencies full-time, and many people are going to definitely question that. I do question those agencies. Why didn't you stay at one or the other? Because you eventually got full-time work. So what was the issue with those two police departments, sheriff's departments? Don't know. 2 allegations, improprieties with a woman, and then her boyfriend claims abuse of power in the jail. And one of those people is African-American. Will we now hear he was racist or has run-ins with African-American people? Abuse of power, excessive force, manhandling, but it never went anywhere. That's the latest. It's the case of the roommate and Sonia. No, they're not. 2 separate cases. Getting married in October to his chief's boss daughter. Oh, I hadn't heard anything about it, Kim. Don't know. I've asked that question too. Was he dating anybody, engaged, married? I hadn't heard anything about a love life or a relationship with a woman, man. So it's over now. Let's say that. If he is dating someone or was about to get married, it's a wrap now. There is no getting married now. And that young lady, she's going to have to move on because you're not going to have any type of relationship with somebody incarcerated. And then you got to count how long it's going to take to get this case to trial. Now, she may want to hang in there, show support to him. That's her choice, whomever she is. But just saying, in the long run, you also got to count the factor if he's found guilty by 12 members of the society, that'll be a wrap. There'll be no more, nothing. Just you visiting him in prison. Thank you all so much for following this network and tuning in. And once again, if you'd like to donate, $Big 129, Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. I appreciate it. Give me a little bit of time. I'm going to come back with live number 2, Gypsy Rose and Ryan Anderson. They can't get a divorce because of Louisiana law. States, they have to live separately for 6 months. And the kicker is she just served Ryan Anderson the divorce papers this month. Wow, what a doozy. Thank you all so much for following this network and your support. You all have a wonderful weekend. Stay hydrated, everybody. Check on the elderly. And also check on those that you know may need other care if they have dementia and or some type of mental disability. Check on your neighbors and your friends, everybody. Oh, thank you all. You're welcome. You have been listening to the Vault XL.